being as though that even in your one-off list where you just had a straight ranking of the top teams in the playoff field, you had the Niners as 1. So you would say that
it's a major, major problem if they don't make the Super Bowl. Something will have gone terribly, terribly wrong. I mean, that's how I see it. They're gonna be favored. They're gonna be at home, and they're healthy, relatively. They're rested. Yeah, if the Niners, there's only really 2 ways, maybe 3, that the Niners can avoid mass criticism. If Buffalo wins 8 in a row, gets to the Super Bowl, and Josh Allen has one of the great games of all time, nobody's going to sit there and say, they ran into a hot team with a better quarterback. Josh Allen's, as good a quarterback as there is, not named Mahomes. So I don't know that there'll be tons of criticism if they play Buffalo and Vegas and lose. If they play Baltimore and Lamar, who I think is the MVP of the league, if Lamar just absolutely is just awesome on Super Bowl Sunday and Baltimore beats the Niners again in the Super Bowl, depending on how it goes, of course, but I think the 49ers would not be heavily criticized. I could understand that. If the Niners lose in the Super Bowl to Mahomes and Reed, let's say Mahomes and Reed starting today, get it going. And we know what they are defensively. They're really good. So if their offense gets it going, which could happen, Kelsey wasn't very good in the regular season. He could be better. Mahomes wasn't as good as he's been. Their receivers dropped a ton of passes. Their offensive tackles had tons of penalties. If somehow they clean it up in those areas and the Chiefs, look like the Chiefs of old, if the Chiefs get there with Reed and Mahomes and beat the Niners again, I don't think there's mass criticism. I think there's, on some level, there will be in the 24 hours after, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's like a disaster. But if the Niners lose in the NFC to any of those teams, the Rams, the Eagles, the Bucks, the Lions, Dallas, or Green Bay, there's going to be people who are, Shanahan's never going to do it, asking for nuclear options, announcing that the window is closed, Purdy's not it, Wilkes isn't it, I don't know who exactly, but you know what I'm saying. It's like there's going to be a lot of not just, bummer. It's not going to be, bummer. It's going to be like, they can't do it. There's going to be like anger if they lose in the NFC playoffs, or if they lost to like the Browns or the Dolphins or anybody else, anybody besides Buffalo, Baltimore, and Kansas City. If they lost in the Super Bowl, there would be like, because the Niners most likely could be favored in all these games, maybe even the Super Bowl.
All right, so I look at it this way.
Do you agree with that? That they're going to get criticized heavily if they lose in the NFC on the way?
Yeah, they should be. They should be. They've been showing the standard of what type of team they are all year. They got to get it done.
There's no excuses, right? This is it. It's go time.
Yeah, there's no reason why we should even be thinking about the Niners not making it to the Super Bowl, especially with, let's be real, it's a down year in the league. It's a down year. There's a lot of unimpressive teams in the playoffs right now, right? Dallas being one of them. So I know we can try to put a dress on a pig and try to say, this is an amazing, playoff contention and, this, that, and the third. But the truth is that if there was ever a time for us to win the Super Bowl, it would be now, right? There's really nobody in the NFC in our way. I'm not going to sit up here and try to put 20 on 10 and think that, I had a conversation with Jesse earlier this morning.
That's okay, by the way, to have that ridiculous. It's okay to have a really high standard and to lay it out there and just say, you know what? There's no excuses. It doesn't, it's just being real. I mean, that's the one thing about you and I doing this stream every Saturday is we don't pull no punches and we're real. So if
we try to stay respectful as possible, but I'm not going to piss on you until it's raining.
Right.
Like,
We're real. We're going to give you our honest opinions. The
I
Niners lose to any of those teams in the NFC. This is a freaking disaster.
it's a failure, right? And you can't place it on Wilkes, right? Because at the end of the day,
Well, it might be on Wilkes. I mean, depending on how it
but
goes.
so how about this? The why we lose and why our season fails is because our first time defensive coordinator failed to operate a defense that our head coach made him run. The subject matter expert of the wide nine is not Steve Wilkes. It's Kyle Shanahan. He is the person that wants this defense. He chose this defense. He understands offense through defense. This is his entire this is like his Disney, this is like his Disney villain origin story. Like, I sat on the floor at Tampa Bay and learned defense in the offices of Monty Kiffin, and like that's how I really started learning offense. So let's not start moving the goalposts. Like, Kyle's job is he's the head coach. His job is to coach coaches. That's the head coach's job. All right. You coach coaches. So if Steve Wilkes is the reason why we find ourselves not even making the Super Bowl or losing, I'm not going to be looking at Steve Wilkes. He just got here a year ago.
Well, it depends, Coach. It depends. I mean, if he goes all out zero blitz like he did at the end of the first half, that was not a good call. And that's
okay. You know what? Let's pause right there. Let's pause right there. Let's pause right there. That was a horrible call.
Yeah.
It was not a good call. Where was Kyle?
It ultimately falls on Kyle.
Where was Kyle? Okay, you know what? There's a baby walking in the middle of the street on the 4-lane highway. That's horrible. That's a poor decision. Where are her parents?
So now you're
saying
Steve
is she out
Wilkes
here unsupervised?
No, I know, but Steve Wilkes is a grown man. I know what I hear what you're saying, but so wait a second. Because Steve Wilkes came to the Niners, and because he's not running his scheme, he's running the Niners scheme. He still has to. He came here. If it's on him, it's on him. Now, if it's not on him, it's not on him. But if somehow he makes some horrible call, then it's on him. Whether he came here and what the situation was.
So
he would admit
this is the reason why. Hold on. So the reason why I'm dying on this hill is because let's take it a step further. Let's go by your scenario. It is on him. Steve Wilkes get fired. Now we get a new rookie DC in here. What's changed? Okay, so let's do it your way. Yeah, it's Steve Wilkes' fault. It's all on Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes is the reason why we lost this game. Let's fire his ass. Let's get him out of here because he's the reason why we didn't win. Cool. He's gone. Now we got another rookie DC. We got the same guys on defense, and Kyle's sitting there like, yeah, man, can't do much about that defense. He's a grown man. Steve knows what he did. No.
They're going to share in it. I mean, like John Lynch put the team together. If they fall short, he'll share in it. Jed owns the team. He'll share in it. Kyle is the head coach. The buck stops with the head coach. Everybody knows in pro football, the primary decision maker is the head coach, and it's on his record. So Steve will take blame and should, but it will be on Kyle. It'll be on Kyle because it's Kyle's coaching staff. It's Kyle Shanahan's team. So, I mean, and who knows if they fall short? I don't know. I mean, to me, if you said to me, give me the number one reason they fall short, and we talked about this in the past, like maybe as recently as last week. I think based on what I've seen this year, there's two things that are likely to happen if the Niners fall short. Either Brock Purdy throws picks because that's how they've lost games this year, or somehow the 49ers fall behind and the game doesn't play out. I hate to say this because I really don't like saying this, but even though the Niners are a veteran team that's been to the Super Bowl and has the experience, there's a fragility to the 49ers with the way they have played this year from the standpoint of.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when they fall behind, they don't win. I mean, What they've led at halftime in 11 of 12 victories. They were tied in the other one. They've only trailed entering the third quarter 3 times all year. They lost all 3 games. So if they get into a situation where they have to, I mean, there are teams that are trailing in the first half and come back in the second half, not the Niners this year. So if they don't get the game on their terms, I'm worried about that. That concerns me because we really, the Browns game would have been the one example of the game
Where
they
they
could have
came
pulled
back.
out and Moody didn't make the kick. But how does Moody respond to pressure? How does Kyle respond to a second half deficit? What happens if the Niners go into the locker room in one of these playoff games and they're down 14-3 or 14-10? Are they going to press? How are they going to respond? Are they going to come out? Are they going to pick themselves off the canvas and win the game? I'd like to think they could, but that's a concern. That, to me, that's a bigger concern than several others. Other people going, oh, well, I'm worried about Colton McKivitz. I kind of know that Colton's going to be pretty good, but not great. Okay, but nothing special. But as far as how's Kyle going to call the game? How's Brock going to play the game? How's Moody going to make kicks or miss kicks? How are they going to play if they fall behind in the second half? Because the pressure is going to mount because they will be at home and favored. And Steve Young has said it many times to me. He's like, hey, look, these playoff games, they're over before they even start. You got to hit the ground running. You can't ease into it. It's like you make a couple mistakes in the first half and one turnover in the second half and a couple bad penalties, and you're at home for the off season. You know what I mean? It happens fast in the playoffs, and we're going to see that, I think, starting today. So that's my big concern is Purdy picks would be one, because when he's thrown picks, they lose. And a little bit on Kyle and if, a little bit on the Niners, kind of like how they handle the pressure, because there's a positive and a negative, right? The positive is they're rested, they're at home. The negative is you're expected to win. And if you fall behind, do you feel the pressure? Do you start to, if you feel that pressure? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not wishing for it, of course, but I'm looking for it. And that's what concerns me the most.
Well, for me, when I hear about the stat of Kyle Shanahan or the 49ers losing, rather, I kind of gave away my ending, but when I look at the stat of the 49ers losing from behind and not being able to win, that's a Kyle Shanahan stat. That's not a 49er stat. That's not a Brock Purdy stat. That's not a Fred Warner stat, right? The common denominator to even bring that stat up is Kyle Shanahan led teams. So that's a Kyle Shanahan stat. So for me, I don't see I don't see a lot. That's the conversation that I was having just a while ago. Like, it is on Kyle. You can't there's only so much that you can put on Steve Wilks. There's only but so much that you can put on Brock. He's been here a year. He's coming off of a huge surgery. He's like the franchise leading passer. Like, what else do you want from him? Like, if Brock completely falls off or he turns into a pumpkin before our eyes, that's not a realization on Brock, right? That's not that's what we were waiting for. We were waiting to see this. This is what it is. It's like, nah, he's on the biggest stage of his life and he's playing the biggest game of his life. And it kind of looks like he's not being supported right now. So Kyle's got to be.
In what way? Who's not supporting him?
Well, I want us to stick to the run game. I want us to see more than one run. I wanted to see more than one ball carrier carry the ball outside of just Christian McCaffrey. I want to see a mix up of tempo. I want to see more power of Jordan Mason. I want to see more Elijah Mitchell. I would like to see Brock staying within the frame of the offense. I don't want to see Kyle trying to get aggressive on teams just because he sees a weakness in the team. I want him to kind of get out of the way. Let the boys play. I want to see the best 10 plays that we do all game. And I want to see them work, right? I don't want to see all of these plays. It's like, are you in the cars, Larry?
Yeah, I'll play
All right.
cards.
Not cards, cars.
Oh,
CARS.
cars.
Yeah.
I have 4 of them. Do you want to see my insurance bills?
Now, yeah. So look, I'm into cars too. And
I wouldn't call myself a car guy, but I've had enough junky cars. I've had a Jeep. I've had all kinds of, I've had all kinds of cars through time for sure.
Larry, shut up. So what I'm saying is the more when you see a car, the more parts that you see a car. If you see a truck and it's lifted and it's got 20-something inch rims on it, it's got huge tires, it's got extra suspension, it's got bags on it, struts, extra tailgate, a winch in front. That car is going to be in the shop perpetually. The more parts is the more service. Okay. You keep the more add-ons, the more extra pieces you put on that hunk of metal, it's just gonna be something else that's gonna fail. A light's always gonna be dinging, a bell's always gonna be going off, something's gonna be hissing, something's gonna be squeaking when you brake, because you put all of this stuff on top of a car that was completely fine by itself. That's our offense. Kyle needs to stop putting all of this extra shit on top of this offense. He needs to let these guys put a hat on a hat, get downhill. I don't want to be an offensive lineman and be in pass protection the first 10 plays of the game. I want to run the ball. Like, it's time for identity. And coincidentally, this is kind of what got us to the Super Bowl. The only season where we actually made it to the Super Bowl in 2019. What did we do against the Packers?
In what year? 91?
No, in 2019. 2020, our Super Bowl year. We threw the ball 8 times.
Yeah, they ran the ball. I mean, they didn't trust Jimmy, and they did it against Minnesota too.
All I'm saying is that I don't want to like get to that level of like taking Brock out the game. He's not Jimmy on that level.
I don't need to be. By the way, I don't need to see Mitchell and Mason now. I mean,
if we go down,
McCaffrey now.
If we go down, I want us to go down with our best shit. That's my point. I want us to go out on our sword. That's the only way I'll feel okay with the season. But I don't want to get on camera with you a month from now and we're sitting here talking about the season and all we're doing is picking apart like, oh, well, the play action back fade, go route that should have been there right there. And it's just like, nah, man, like, I don't want to go out trying to be somebody else. Like, we need to start putting our identity down. And what is our identity? Are we really a physical team? Right? At the end of the day, are we the team that's going to get in 12 personnel we have the only fullback in the league? Are we really the team that's going to get in 12 personnel and pound the rock and take over a game? Is that who we are? Or is that who we masquerade to be? Right? Do we play a physical style of football or are we a physical team? Are we a finesse team that plays a physical style of football? Or are we a physical team, period? Right? Because this is the playoffs. They're going to let us play. Like, there's not going to be a lot of they're going to be swallowing these whistles. They're going to let us play.